it's kind of frustrating and exhilarating at the same time. It's like the fan doesn't have actual control over the outcome.
Mm-mm.
No.
But you hear people talk about their team with the pronoun we. We lost. But you're not on the team. I'm Psychologist Dr. Bryan Violette. Today, I'll be sitting down with Jim and Regina Donahue. They're my longtime friends. Jim is the principal of a Catholic boys' high school, and Regina is equally impressive as a mother of 6. Today, we are talking about sports fandom and what that means for religious practice. This is the Catholic Center Show. Yeah, I also, something that also stands out in my mind as something characteristic of the two of you is your, well, I guess I have questions about this, but I would say your love of sports and Pittsburgh fandom. And I don't know if, Regina, you're actually a fan, or because you love Jim so much, you became your fandom deepened?
Sure.
Or a combination of both. You were kind of a fan, but you just loved Jim. Like, there's things that, like, Teresa never, like, she kind of played video games growing up, but then she fell in love with me, and so she was like, okay, I'll try some video games, or I'll like the Celtics, you know. So is it relational for you? Like, what is the feminine perspective on Pittsburgh sports, which is a real thing? Pittsburgh sports is a real thing.
Yes. Pittsburgh sports, and in my family growing up, we watched the Steelers. That is what we did. We were huge football fans. And when we first started hanging out together, we went to the games. That was like one of our first dates. But even before we were dating, we just hung out at Steeler games. So I was a true football fan. I think I became a hockey fan relationally. And
nice.
Now, due to just the timing of football games and the duration, I would say I watch a lot less football, unfortunately, but I'm still a fan. I mean, it's hard, but Penguin games, they're like a great amount of time. Our whole family is into it. I mean, we love sports.
Yeah, I would say I was into the Penguins. Our family was a big hockey family, but like that's kind of like a subculture when I grew up in Pittsburgh. Like Steelers was it.
Yeah.
I think hockey in general is a subculture, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's caught up now. I think it's kind of equal.
Sidney Crosby changed the culture in Pittsburgh. I mean, we had some real. I guess Lemieux did the same thing.
How dare you talk about Jaromir Jagr that way? How dare you?
We have a picture of him in our.
We got one back there. No, but there's I like the Steelers and everything. I love them, but like when I started hanging out with Regina, it was like I finally entered into the true culture of Pittsburgh in that regard. We go to tailgates. Like the tailgating scene in Pittsburgh is unbelievable. They've unfortunately built buildings and limited it, but like that's what you did. You wake up at 6 a.m., go down to the stadium and tailgate. And so that's what we started doing. Before we even started dating, it's like a big part of how we started dating, really, was just through the Steeler tailgates and games. And I think we even went to Cleveland.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Once or twice. That was long before we did it.
Yeah. Went to the Ravens game. It was
that's so cool.
So then I think we kind of shared then. I was like, she became a hockey fan. I became more of we were both obviously Pittsburgh fans, but.
Jim, do you still have time to watch anything? I know my sport fandom went from I love all sports to I love certain sports to I love basketball to I watch Celtic games to I watch a Celtic game if I have time.
Yeah. The highlight.
The key thing is that I've older sons now, so I can use that as an excuse. Oh yeah, we're gonna watch the game.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
This is the first time I've played fantasy football in probably 13, 14, years.
Because we have a 13-year-old.
Because a 13-year-old. So I'm like picking guys. I'm like, oh man, this guy's great. And like,
honey, it's for the kids.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. So I'll get a game in. It's great too, especially when you get a ticket. Oh, we got to take him to the game.
Yep.
Yeah.
When our son picked his team, he was like, Mom, do you know what fantasy football is? I said, James, like, I used to beat your dad every week in fantasy football. Like, this is what we did.
Oh,
Really
up the mom cool factor. You got to take your victories where you can as a mom.
Exactly.
Nice. Very nice.
We're
Now,
a little more full circle on those things.
what do you think about the idea of sports as religion? Sports as religion. By that, I mean, there's fandom and then there's fanaticism.
Mm-hmm.
And for certain people, it becomes their new creed. You know, their loyalty to a certain team, the amount of time, like it's almost worship.
Sure.
Have you ever like reflected on like I'm sure for you guys it fits, there's a certain hierarchy in terms of where it fits with your faith, but
Right.
I mean religion is I mean in the absence of religion or the decline of religion in American culture, people turn to sports oftentimes.
Right.
Thought about why or what that's about?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's changed a little bit even in the last couple of years, but Pittsburgh definitely like that was like if the Steelers lost Monday, Tuesday, we're miserable in this town.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that way?
I do sometimes.
I do too.
I get real salty. Yeah, I do. Because
not for that long, but I do feel it.
Yeah.
I do feel it. But I think that the more and more social media stuff, it's like almost distracted us from that God.
Yeah.
It's really weird. It's like people aren't as engaged anymore. There's not droves of people going to the game anymore. It's like, here's my God.
You don't have to.
Yeah, I'm going to go.
I'm
going to gamble. I'm going to do all this. And it's like the community part of it's kind of gone a little bit.
But it's so special when the community is there when you go to a live game, though, isn't it? It's really special.
Right. It's like I'm lamenting the fact that we're worshiping sports. And it's gone, but it is kind of gone a little bit. But when it was here, you're right. It was. It was.
Like, I wish we could worship sports as an idol again.
Let's get rid of social media so we can worship sports again.
Yeah.
But you're right. It did happen. It definitely happens. It's definitely. It happens still in little pockets. I think people do it for maybe their kids' sports teams.
That's what I was going to say.
I think some of the parents that we like peers that we have that like their kid plays, I don't know, 12-year-old amateur hockey or whatever.
Locally. How are those parents? Have you guys encountered those parents yet? You know, the ones I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The ones whose lives depend on their child's performance.
Yeah. Yes. That's where I see it most.
That's where we see it most.
Like that's the God now. That's the worship is
it's so upsetting, isn't it?
It's
so strange.
And we really say yes to a lot of sports. Like our kids play whatever they want for the most part, but they also kind of know like, hey, you're going to miss it if it's during mass time or if it's during, we have a birthday party, like we're just not going to go. And that's, maybe you won't make the best team, but that's, right. There's more important things.
But let's face it. It's probably good that you realize that you're not making it to the NHL now.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no doubt about that.
That'd be good.
There's a lot of people that think that that's what's happening. I would say that's the shift. If you're going to actually go with what's replaced Sunday morning, it's people's kids' sports.
So a quote comes to mind from his cousin who's a priest, and he always is saying, what the church drops, the world picks up. And it seems like and it's a little bit of a crushing comment because you kind of know,
but it's true.
It's so true. Like that Sunday mass, bringing in the Lord's Day, like all of that, like that has really been depleted in our culture. And I think that we look to replace it. And if it's your kid playing a sport or if it's watching the professionals play sports, like you're just looking for that thing to do on that day.
Yeah.
If that's what happens.
Yeah. I think too, there's something about the lack of effort required on the part of the individual. Like it's almost like vicarious striving.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of frustrating and exhilarating at the same time. It's like the fan doesn't have actual control over the outcome.
No.
But you hear people talk about their team with the pronoun we. We lost. But you're not on the team. But the emotional investment, as if it's me and it's my team, the ownership And like I'm rooting in a certain way. I'm rooting for myself, and I'm rooting for us. And there, I think there still is a collective quality to fandom. Even although I was going to say, even on the internet, even in social media, there's you can still narrow your focus down to your team. You know, but well, the side thought I had was like, actually now it's becoming more national. At least in the basketball world, it's hard to even root for a team. You root for players because I think there's no helmets in basketball. It's really personality driven. So and the players move from team to team so frequently that there's not that same team allegiance as there used to be. There's not that team loyalty, but still, I think that the vicarious striving is there. I'm living out my fantasies, especially if people feel unsatisfied in their professional life.
Sure.
Because it's interesting because sports and in a larger way, play in general is work without stress. Now it's stress for professional athletes, but the reason our children play is because they're practicing for work. The reason as adults we have hobbies is because we're working without the stress. We are built for work. This is like goes right back to Genesis, right?
Right.
You know, like you're gonna work out your salvation on the sweat of your brow. We in the space that if we have free time and space, we're gonna put a hobby in there, and generally it's work. It's a work related hobby, but it doesn't stress us out. Even if that hobby is watching film or watching television shows, you have an opinion on it. Your hobby is to be a film critic, right? And there's no consequences. You're not being paid for it. Right. People aren't reading your articles, but we're still so built for work, and that's what play is. So I think sports is a particular manifestation of that desire to work that's always there for all of us.
Yeah, and it's a great opportunity to find excellence, to face stress. I mean, I think about my kids, and there's so many people watching them when they're playing. They have to perform on the spot. I mean, it's amazing what they're all
doing. Don't you judge my child. My child is loved independent of whether or not he scores. You got that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's like people, they teeter on that though. It's like the kid should be doing that. You're right. Without stress, should be fun. Like how long do you get to be in a team atmosphere like that?
Yeah.
And yet some of them burn out by the time they're age 14. They're like, I don't want to touch my skates again. I don't want to touch a basketball again.
Because it was stressful. Right.
Because it was stressful.
Yeah.
Such a good point.
Right.
Just over practice. It's like, no, go outside and play a pickup game.
And strike a balance. Sorry if I.
Yeah. No, please go ahead.
Just that balance between stress and excellence, because the reason why we're doing this is to teach them something. Like we're not, standing on a soccer field Saturday for 8 hours unless it was valuable for the rest of their life. And just the play experience isn't just that, it's like, no, we're teaching you something to take to the rest of your life.
Before we were talking here, we just casual conversation about exorcisms before we started recording.
Yeah.
So I worked with an exorcist one time who talked about this. He shared with me that the devil loves competition. And this struck me as an interesting statement. And I said, what do you mean the devil loves competition? Should we not be competitive? He said, no. It's okay to compete. But there's a very subtle, nuanced distinction here. So whenever it's me against you, in my mind, subjectively, if I perceive it that way, and I'm putting myself above or below you, it becomes a question of dignity. I am above you or below you, and I'm subjugating you. There's a strong temptation to pride associated with performance. Mm-hmm. So Satan loves that. Mm-hmm. And that's what you don't want to get wrapped up in. Separate from that, there is space for, I want to excel. I want to do the best job that I can with my gifts to reflect God's omnipotence and God's ultimate proficiency. And I want the opponent to do the same thing. I actually will their good and want them to do the best. And at the end, there happens to be a score. There happens to be a consequence or a result. of each of us doing our best. And that's the way to compete and be competitive. It's not I'm better than you, and therefore my identity is better than yours.
Right.
I always thought that was very interesting.
Yes, that's very interesting. And you see that on the field with the handshake. Like, that's the end of the game. You shake the other team's hands. Mean that.
Right. Or you have the Michael Jordans of the world who will step on your throat in order to win. I will do anything. And that's all sympathy and compassion to the Michael Jordans of the world who happen to be the best at what they do, but they're unhappy because their self-worth is based on whether or not that's that hierarchy, whether or not I'm better than someone and I'll do whatever it takes. Morality be damned in order to win. And it actually creates an emptiness within them.
And it ruins the game.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Yeah.
I love respecting my opponent.
Right. My son, a couple years ago, was on a club hockey team. And I went to a tournament. And I had a baby. So taking the baby to the ice rink isn't, a common thing that I did. I was so mortified by the behavior of his team. And truly embarrassed. His team was it was awful. It was embarrassing the way that they were competing with the other kids. And there was a full-blown fight. And these kids are in 6th grade. So it was like they were very little to be fighting. And I was then turned to pride because my son went over to the kid on the other team and like helped him up. And I was like, okay, we're still okay. Like, this is
we're good parents. We're doing something right.
Right.
You ever see that?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so encouraging.
Golf now, and I know that's like kind of be a hoity-toity sport, but
hoity-toity. That's a good word.
I think in golf it lends itself to like that competitive thing that you're talking about. Like, I'm going to try my best, but I also want the guy against me to play well too, because it just could be super embarrassing to play with someone that's just not playing well. Yeah. And you push each other more and more, like as the holes go on, the pressure builds and there's respect there. And that doesn't always happen, but I think at least I've seen it in golf where there's you're cheer for the guy. Nice shot. Nice finish.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I think there's a recognition of how hard that game is, that you're just happy when anyone else is happy about themselves. Because the dangerous thing in golf is you just ripping yourself. That's how people rage and throw clubs, and you're so hard on yourself. And it doesn't matter if anyone's watching. You can be hard on yourself if you go on a course by yourself.
Oh yeah. No, there's no doubt. I mean, and you're out there and you have to put the ball in the hole at some point. Like, it's not like in a competition. Like when you're on the weekend, you're hanging out.
I was gonna say one triple bogey later, it does go in the hole.
It's real. You got to mark that score down. It's not like you're on the weekend with your buddies. It's like, I'll just pick up this hole. Forget that.
Yeah.
No, you got to finish the hole and you got to mark the score. And it's like, man, okay, come on, man. I want to see you do well this hole. I feel so bad for you. This is so hard.
And that's virtue too, isn't it? It's the integrity associated with the right thing transcends how I feel emotionally at this moment. I have to finish the hole no matter how angry I am or frustrated or despairing I am, how depressed I am about my play.
Right.